Towards the end of last year, we actually commissioned some research across the continent to understand how much investment is actually going into all the pillars of IC and T. And good to see that a lot of countries are actually putting a lot of funds into this, and it's exploding. Nice to see all the internet connectivity that's coming to the continent. Challenge to get that through into the continent, but lots of startups, lots of investment in that area. So yes, it's booming. Well, in general, in a market, if there's consolidation, then obviously it means less competition in the market, and therefore customers potentially have less choice. Across the continent, yes, there probably is going to be some consolidation. Is it needed? Probably, as we increase the scope of the players that are there. And there's a customer benefit in my mind, because by consolidating, you're creating more availability of connectivity and bandwidth, and hopefully costs come down as well. But it's not just about cost, it's about access. Yeah. And access to that bandwidth is what's key. Otherwise, all these dreams that we have of creating these startups and initiatives, they're not going to work unless you've got that bandwidth running. So I think that culture is starting to take shape across the continent. In our research, we saw that there's a number of silicon Savannahs, as they're called, being formed across the continent. So modeled on the sort of Silicon Valley concept, where you bring sort of academia, you bring technology partners, you bring funding, access to professional services all in one place, and entrepreneurs. And they come through and they say, well, how do I take my idea to the next level? It's early days, but I'm really encouraged to see that there's a number of these across Africa. There's certainly in Kenya, in Nigeria, in Ghana. South Africa has a number of these as well. Do they need to be sort of more regulated? My view is not. I think we should be pushing those even more. And nice to see governments across the continent also putting investment and drive into these areas. What I'm very excited about is some African solutions to African problems. And there is a regional view of this, right? So you don't have to necessarily take your stuff and globalize it to be successful. We have some unique challenges on this continent, and there's some really interesting ideas that are starting to form to address those. And M-Pesa is one of them. You know, lack of access to banking and payment systems, and everybody's got a phone. How can we use that phone to facilitate payments and transfers? And that's why that thing has just grown and mushroomed. You ask why it hasn't been successful in other countries. I guess it's a combination of factors. Government intervention, regulatory environments, being able to facilitate that. In a more established financial services market, it becomes more difficult to do that because there's more regulation of necessity because of the bigger volumes. But that could be obstacles and hurdles to jump over. Yeah. So there's that. There's also, if there's an established banking infrastructure already, as there is in South Africa, then it can be seen as another channel. Yeah. What's the differentiator? What's the value add from using that? I think that's where people have to be quite smart to say, well, yes, I'm trying to solve a problem, but how am I going to make this specific and create value for the user of that particular technology? But you've got to start somewhere, I guess, but it's a combination of all the factors we've spoken about. So funding that needs to just ramp up across the continent. Infrastructure, yes, while it's there and the basic form is there, the speed needs to increase, and cost. So to me, it creates the opportunity to leapfrog certain technologies. And I think M-Pesa is a great example of that, where you don't have to wait for a formal banking system to be fully in place and mobile channels, etc. Suddenly, with the advent of the phone, you are able to do what people in developed economies have been doing for years, but just on a different platform. So I think across Africa, we have an opportunity to leapfrog things that we don't have to now do and dig things into the ground because we've got different technology. And that investment could be channeled in different ways, so it creates a massive opportunity for us.